live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, on the last Wednesday of September, marching right along. Just 3 more months, pretty much, of 2023, and then we go into 2024. It's hard to believe, but if you think about it here, in about 6 months, give or take, Sleepless with Steve, the reincarnation, the reboot of Sleepless with Steve, is going to be 4 years old. Believe it or not. Something I was thinking about the other day. Reborn from a global crisis, brought back from the depths. And still going. Long after the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are still here, still talking about all things movies, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got a very good, or very interesting, I would add, too, new movie on streaming, on Hulu specifically. The movie is called No One Will Save You. That is currently out on Hulu, released last week. We have some thoughts on that. Going to be an interesting show to talk about that. And then we also have a very positive update, I'm sure. Everybody sort of saw the news break, or at least a lot of people did. It was late last week where you started to hear the rumblings that the studios and the Writers Guild Association were coming to an agreement on a contract, finally, after 148 days. Second longest labor union work stoppage, I think. Can you back me up on that, Dom? Is it second longest?
But that's what I'm seeing. The longest of its kind. Second longest too. It's probably some miners who those guys are stubborn as the rocks that they dig out of the ground. So second
longest. Actually, it was as far as the writer's strike is concerned, it's the longest interruption to the American film and television production since the pandemic, and the second longest labor stoppage since 1988 writer's strike. That lasted 153 days.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
So this one missed it by about less than a week even, too. This was 148 days. So we're going to break down. Actually, Dom's going to break down. There's some points that I want to make, but Dom's going to break down really how the writers made out of this agreement now that the writer's strike is officially over, and also touch on what that means for SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild. A lot of people under the misconception, including a couple of friends of mine, thinking that like both strikes were working in unison, or both groups were working in unison for the same contract. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
They're separate guilds. They are separate entities. SAG-AFTRA is still on strike at the moment. So the screen actors are still on strike. The writers, however, have come to an agreement after 148 days. Huge news. And, there's a lot of things. We can talk more about this later on in the show. There's a lot of things I think that are positive with this thing. A lot of things that are really inspiring about this agreement that they came to. And also, too, I think the nice thing is the fact that, like, I think, sooner rather than later, especially when it comes to the SAG-AFTRA strike, hopefully coming to an end sometime soon before the end of the year, we'll actually be able to go back to talking about movies instead of labor disputes, which is really nice things for this podcast.
Well, hopefully I have movies to review as well.
Yeah, honestly, TBD on that. Either way, meaty show today. Lots of fun topics to cover, including, again, that Writers Guild strike finally coming to an end here. I look forward to Dom's lecture on all things WGA when the time comes.
I did not have a document. I did not have a Google document, so it will be contained.
Yes, it will be contained, or else I would have just said skip the movie. We're just covering the strike if you would have busted out the Google Doc. Either way, my friend, it is great to see. It's great to see you. It's great to see you as well, Joe. Dom, how are you doing? How's this week treating you?
So a lot of things are weighing on me, but particularly the washing machine breaking, which is just one of those things that you don't think about. It's like washing machine. That's just like a basic thing in your house that you, or something that you go to and it always works, right? Whether here or at a store, external place. When it just breaks, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, I didn't realize how much I depended on this thing. So I dismantled it last night, had to remove they're stacked too, the dryer on top of the washer. So that's great. So I had some help taking that off. when I took it off, I had to disassemble the damn thing, and the part came in today. So hopefully, we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. If it doesn't work, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. And but we'll see what happens. I can be handy. I never like being so, but if it means that or a $500 service fee, then I'll do it myself. God damn it! But out of spite and spite alone, that's how I get things done.
Good hell. I was going to say, good for you. My parents, specifically my father, always taught me that if something breaks, the best way to fix it is to call somebody. So I am very much a proponent of stimulating the economy and keeping the economy going.
If I had the money, absolutely. You have no idea.
That's the hard part, though. I was going to say, you watching some YouTube videos?
Yes, and some good ones actually. So DIY is actually pretty good on YouTube.
Shout out to DIY culture on YouTube too.
People, rightly so, comment on how like, oh yeah, if you ever have trouble with your computer, you can always count on the Indian guy on YouTube who records in 140p, and it's a little hard to understand, but God damn it, they have the right answer. They figure it out. They got it going. They are the backbone of this of the internet. But the equivalent for like washing machines and sinks and stuff, Midwestern dads, man. That's where it's at. Midwestern dads in their 50s and 60s.
It's true. I had to unclog my drain a couple of months ago, my bathtub drain. And I wanted to look up, which is, let me tell you, a dirty job if I've ever had to do it. Dude, it sucks. It truly does. And it's one of those jobs too. I just kind of contradicted myself in saying I usually call people when something breaks. That was a job though, that just because of the dirtiness and the ignominy of it all, it was like, I'm going to do this myself and fix this myself. Like you just said though, suburban dad pouring Drano down the drain and being like, look, dumb shit. Here's how you do this. Is elite stuff right there. Well, Sug, to you, Joe, a morose Bears fan such as myself. How are you, my friend?
Ooh, man, it has been quite the week since last Sleepless. The Bears got annihilated in front of the pop princess herself, so I can never go up to Taylor Swift and say I'm from Chicago and ever. Not that I'll ever be in her presence, but if I ever somehow ran into Taylor Swift, I don't want to say I'm from Chicago. I'll say I'm from Kansas City. Yeah, man. School's been rough. Or nearing the end of the class I'm currently in. It is the toughest class of the program that I'm currently taking, and I see why. I even texted the group chat that a bunch of me and other master students in the same program are in. And when I first asked them, like, hey, do you guys have any pointers about this class? One guy said, here's my pointer. Never asked me about this class ever. And I replied to that message now 6 weeks in, like, okay, yeah, I get it. So, yeah, it's been stressful. It's been rough. But things are looking more positive soon. I shaved my face because I'll be going on a school trip soon. My school, once again, wanted me to attend a conference to represent the school, and my work even wanted me to go, since my school was sending me, like, yeah, you can go represent us then as well. So it's a 2-for-1 there. So I'll be going on a trip very soon. I shaved my face because I'll be meeting a ton of alumni, bunch of other people in my field, learning more experience and stuff. So at least it'll be a little getaway. The only thing that's going to suck is I'm going to be doing homework and work while on this little getaway when I'm not at a conference.
That's the worst.
That is the worst.
You just want to enjoy yourself.
It sucks.
Okay, look, I appreciate a good education, advanced education, continuing education. I encourage it. Absolutely. People have fought and died for our right to, and on all levels of society, to be able to give us education. I can't do school, man. Something about it. Maybe it's my ADHD riddled brain that has yet to be diagnosed, but I just cannot do it. I can't do it. And when it weighs down upon me in my regular life, I'm like, Jesus Christ, God damn, I can't do it. So I totally get it.
Like, I've been coming home, and the way I'm talking now is how I talk to everybody at home. My mom, my stepmother, my dad. They're not all in one house, by the way. This is just me going to either house, my mom's house or my dad's house. It's just like, they're just like, is everything okay? I'm like, no, I felt like I made the worst decision of my life, but also the best decision when it's all said and done, hopefully. So yeah, that's how it just feels. It's also just the weather. The weather out here in Illinois sucks. The Bears suck. The Cubs suck. The Sox suck. The Blackhawks suck. The Bulls didn't get a good trade today. Instead, it went to the fucking there's our one F word of the show. It went to the Blazers. My room's a mess.
The Bucks.
The Bucks, not the Blazers. Sorry. My room is a mess. That's why I have it as the Los Alamos project today, because I don't want anyone who's not authorized back there to see.
Clever.
So, yeah,
you still got your wits about you.
Yeah. So I'm still grooving in that sort of way. I'm still smiling. I'm still excited to talk about movies. And every Wednesday, it's at least a good getaway from everything in the world to talk about this. It sucks I might miss next week, depending on my flight time home. Right now, it's still the same. And even though I requested to see if I can get an earlier flight, we'll see what happens. Because I do want to see The Creator, because I love how visually it looks. But if I have to miss out the review, I have to miss out. But anyways, let's focus on today's show.
Absolutely. Yep. Next week is The Creator. At least Dom and I will, at the very least, Dom and I will be here for that show. Joe TBD on that. But next week is The Creator. Very excited about that one. A lot of movies coming out this weekend that I am truly looking forward to and looking forward to watching. So we will get to that. When it comes to it. Anyway, we'll talk about the WGA strike to close the show in the second half. I think we could probably plow through this movie and talk about this movie fairly, reasonably quickly.
I think so.
No One Will Save You. No One Will Save You. Brian Duffield's brand new film starring Caitlin Dever and very, very few other people, too. It is an extremely small scale at the same time, somewhat larger scale movie. This is now on Hulu. Just came out last week. The film is really interesting because in 93 minutes, there's only 2 lines of dialogue in the whole thing. And it is a very well filmed movie. It's very well shot. It's got some great sound. It's got some great cinematography. It's got a very nice score and a great performance by Caitlin Dever. Some really nice special effects too for a movie that I think, wasn't the highest of high budgets nor the lowest of low, but this is a very accomplished looking movie, which is why it fucking comes on streaming, unfortunately. This would have been really good to see in a theater. And I kept saying that. Catherine and I watched this together. I said, this would have been really good in a theater and really immersive in a theater. And it sucks that this thing has to come out onto streaming because it's well worth seeing. It's not very long. Again, like I said, it's 93 minutes, and it essentially revolves around this young girl played by Caitlin Dever, who is like living in her childhood home and by herself. Her mother's gone, her best friend named Maud has passed away under mysterious circumstances. So essentially she keeps to herself, and she like constructs this model town, these like small buildings in her living room. And then eventually aliens, these humanoid weird looking aliens that kind of look like more evolved like humanoid alien versions of the aliens in A Quiet Place.
Yeah,
they start arriving and break into the house and try to wrestle with her and subdue her, if you will. And then eventually she's trying to fight back. And as the movie goes on, you learn a little bit more about what happened with Maud and why Maud's parents shun this girl Bryn, why they shun her from society, why everybody pretty much shuns her from society. And the movie's intensely focused on Caitlin Dever. Again, there's no dialogue really in this movie either. And and the interesting part is it's like, like she can talk. She just doesn't have really anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
And she doesn't waste her words either, or like talks to herself or anything. That's why it creates this thing to this impulse of you as a viewer, the lack of dialogue in this thing, to kind of lean forward and look a little bit closer and read between the lines. Really makes you sort of an active moviegoer. I think that's first things first. One of the things I really like about this movie is it demands that you pay attention to it, and it rewards you paying attention. Pop over to you, Joe. Your thoughts on No One Will Save You?
Let me start out by saying that the idea of this movie was not just the alien thing, but like having a movie where you follow a character that doesn't talk throughout the whole movie has always been something I would have loved making myself. Not that I'm a filmmaker or anything, but just like the short period of time when I was so into movies that I wanted to be a filmmaker, like every other fucking film fanatic has. I was like, man, I would really love to see a movie like, and my idea was during the zombie apocalypse because I'm a teenager and like I thought like that was gonna be so original and cool. I was like, man, I would love to have like a movie take place during there, and it's like you follow a character, and it's like it's very limited on dialogue and everything because I've always thought it's such a creative way to do storytelling is all through visuals. One thing I loved about Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes movies is a lot of those movies rely on visual storytelling. At least the last two that he actually directed. The first 10 minutes of one of them, there's no dialogue. Like it's just all like it's all done visually and everything. You're getting caught up to speed with a ton of stuff. That's done just through apes doing sign language or facial expression. So the idea of this is something that just instantly clicked with me when I heard like there's just only 2 lines of dialogue in this movie. I was like, oh my god, yeah. I'm so down with this. And then I heard it's an alien invasion movie, and I'm like, holy shit, that even sounds cooler. Like they actually have an interesting way of doing this. A classic alien invasion, not this War of the Worlds things where it's giant spaceships. No, like body snatcher type of stuff, which we haven't had in a while. And like Up was not Up. Nope was the movie I was thinking of. Up is
very different movies, though.
A whole different movie.
Very good. Elite screw up.
Yeah, Nope was it was kind of a body snatcher movie, but it involved more of a spaceship than aliens. This to me is more of like that classic sci-fi thing. I mean, even like Steve was saying, like the aliens are kind of the humanoid evolution of the Quiet Place aliens. They're basically the little gray men that we've seen in like old school sci-fi films, but just like evolutionized. Like they have different parts to them. There's different species of each one of them, or different different versions of them. And I gotta say, man, I really like this movie a lot. I like going into it. I mean, like it's got an uphill battle. You can't really have dialogue to express a character, so it all relies on this one actress to do all the heavy lifting in this movie. And I just gotta say, Caitlin Dever, she is really damn good in this movie. It starts out a little cheesy, where it's like she's constantly going, like just making little grunts like that, and I'm just like, all right, is this how the movie's gonna actually be? Because this is
as somebody who watches movies with captions on, it's like the captions in this movie amount to sighs, breathes heavily.
It reminded me a lot. Anytime if you guys watch anime or anything, like when a character's like, oh, like when something shocking happens, it's like
it's iconic. That iconic anime.
That.
It's like it's just stuff like that. It's like you don't realize. It's one of those things that it's like when we go from anime to live action, it's like, oh, this is a insurmountable challenge that we didn't realize we had on our hands here.
So like it started out that way, and I was like, all right, this might be a little too cheesy. But as the movie went along, especially when the aliens do start showing up, and this mystery of why does everybody in this town hate her? Like, what's going on? As that continued to play out, the more and more I got invested. It's a lot of there's a lot of familiarity with what happens in this movie. Like, it is an alien invasion movie, so you're gonna see a lot of stuff that you've seen in a movie I just mentioned, War of the Worlds. You'll see some similarities there. And even with the whole mystery of like what happened to her best friend and why does the town hate her, that stuff you can piece together too with any other mystery. It's how the movie is done that made it feel so what's the right word I'm working for here? Like, so it made it feel much more like they were really influenced. There we go. They really had something that they were influenced by, and really like they were focused on doing this story this way. And how it is done with limited dialogue, all focused on one character. I was like, this is actually like a really refreshing way of doing this, because it's just like I'm just appreciating the creativity side of this. Whenever it is a part of the movie, I'm like, okay, I know how this is probably gonna play out. It honestly reminds me of what's that show called? Oh my god, I'm just blanking out on so many stuff. Jordan Peele just brought it back for one season. It was a
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. This movie reminded me of like a longer episode of the Twilight Zone, especially with how it ends. How it ends, I was like, dude, this straight up is just practically the Twilight Zone at this point. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I very much enjoyed this movie. There's a few parts where I'm just, yeah, I kind of like rolled my eyes, like, okay, because it's an alien invasion movie, we have to do this kind of thing. Okay, like, you know, the whole limited dialogue thing here, it is kind of suffering at moments, where like it's like, okay, like, come on, I mean, you gotta tell somebody. Do you realize what I just saw out there? Like something like that. But I think for the most part, it's played really well. It's played very like serious. It's played very well from the main actress and everybody involved. That I let it slide at times, and overall, I had a good time. I'll pass it off to you, Dom.
I think I've come to the conclusion that this is a highly effective movie at being a litmus test for certain viewers. If you're more savvy, if you want to get to the heart of what someone thinks about movies, media, storytelling, this might be a good place to start. By that, I mean, there's a lot of immediate things going on with this story that are like, holy shit, there's aliens. Surprise, surprise. It's hardly a spoiler, but there are aliens. This girl is in danger. What the hell is going on? What is the mystery here? But and a lot of movies would be content with that, particularly horror movies, just whatever kind of threat there is. What this movie does well above and beyond, which is hardly unique, but what it does so effectively is its emotional arc for its character that so many other movies forget to do. Not like just forget altogether, but for the most part, they just completely undersell it.
Yeah, a lot of times a movie like this, the third act would undersell something like this because they'll have a big climax, and this did the complete opposite.
Or it would just shove it all in at the
that
end,
too, yeah,
without building it up at all. And it's like, oh, that felt kind of cheap, or just whatever kind of mistake that so many other stories either commit lightly or commit heavily. This one, it is one in the same with the immediate action. It is all. This is a story about trauma, a story about
forgiveness,
about losing loved ones, about isolation, about coming out of one's shell and how heavy of a burden that is. And it just so happens to be in the midst of an alien invasion. And that's what I think that's honestly what makes that's the emotional impact of something like Shaun of the Dead. Now, of course, Edgar Wright films, they're just technical masterpieces in and of themselves. They're marvels to look at and experience. But at the heart of Shaun of the Dead is that it is a zombie movie, but it's a rom-com at the same time. It's a rom-com zom, as they were marketing it, which is just a joy to look at. Here, it is all about this central character. What is the mystery of the aliens is one thing. The mystery of what the hell did this girl do that made is she just a dork because she's got her little play set? Is that the reason? If it were real life, probably, because the real life is mean, especially small towns.
She dresses like she lost the right to vote. Like,
dude, yeah, for real. I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure I did see a cell phone in this movie, but like when she came out of the house wearing like the outfit in the screenshot I just showed on screen for our viewers, I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, have I missed something? Is this a time period piece?
Did you write that down? Did you write that before?
I literally just thought of that.
That's genius. She dresses like she lost the right to vote.
Oh, she does. She does. She's dressed. I think when I was watching with Catherine, I was because we were confused in the beginning. We were like, what time period is this set in? And I'm like, I think like the car she was driving was a modern SUV. I don't know why she's dressed like a waif, but like,
no, I was like, because there were times where it's like, oh, was this set in the 80s or something? Like, oh my god. Sorry,
that's got to be one of the Sleepless quotes of the year right there. She dressed like she lost the right to vote.
That's very effective. No, the thing that makes this so effective is its emotional impact and its character, right? Like, yeah, of course, the alien thing is very interesting, but even if you don't care about that stuff, even if you think you don't care about something like character development or like the emotional side of things, the more humanistic side of things, even if you think you don't care about it and you just want to know what the hell is going on with these aliens, when it's not there, you will know it.
Yeah.
You won't know it. You'll feel it. you'll feel it and it'll feel hollow. It'll feel empty. It's what you feel with a lot of these Marvel movies nowadays. And that's what a lot of people fail to miss. And going back to this litmus testing, and I'll end here, but going back to this litmus test thing, if I watch this movie with someone and at the end of it, if they're like, what the hell was that ending? Or it's like, well, I want to know what they do with the aliens, or like, I want to know this or whatever. It's like, did she win? Did she lose? It's like, that's how you know this person needs a little bit of emotional growth. George, like, I'm being very, very condescending, but only because everyone else is dumb. Only because it's something that frustrates me as a creative person. I've never written a movie, and I probably never will. But it's like, when it's there, it is so effective, and when it's not there, it's so painstakingly obvious.
Yeah.
And I'm being very vague, right? Because of course it's the plot of the movie, so I'm trying not to be spoilerific. But it does it so damn well that it just so happens that everything else it does is also very effective. So I am very much all for this movie, and I am so much more to talk. It's so potent at what it does, of what little it does, that it's not like Dune where we can go into it more. So like, I don't know where we can go from here.
I mean, I could just go the opposite from you. The alien stuff in this movie is actually very terrifying as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to like discourage people like, this is a very thought-provoking film. No, it is that. But if you're here for the aliens, you're going to have a good time too. Like,
yes.
There's a couple of really good scenes. Can I just make note too? I want to say one thing like serious, and one thing point out something that's funny. One of the things that really works in this movie, especially during the alien scenes, is the music. And I think the music does a lot of the heavy lifting.
That and the sound design too.
Yeah, we just give some admiration to the composer's name of this? Sounds like his last name sounds like the title of a Gucci Mane album. His name is Joseph Trapanese. It sounds like the title of a Lil Wayne song right there. I love that. Joseph Trapanese. That's a last name right there. I just noticed that about 40 minutes ago when I was getting ready for the show. I'm like, that's a dope name. But
that sounds like trap from Japan. Trapanese. And that would be a label Americans would give that genre.
The closest thing I could relate to this is the Migos song from many years ago before they blew up, when they would talk about how they didn't care what people online would say about them negatively, because they said that they were speaking brokenese, and that's what that's where I will end that sidebar anecdote there. My knowledge of hip hop. But continue, Joe.
No, I mean, like the alien stuff in here, like I was saying, it is creepy. They just do weird stuff, man. Like, they're the kind of aliens where it's like, you have aliens like in Quiet Place. Yeah, they move really slow because they're sound based and everything. There's a reason for that. And
they're more animalistic too. They're just beasts.
When their walking speed is our running speed, and they're just walking that fast, it's like, okay, I don't even want to know how fast you run. Like, when she first comes across one and it's just walking around her kitchen at like fast as hell, I'm just like, dude, I would freak the hell out if I saw that running around. I would think it's running around, only to find out like, oh no, that's just it walking. Like, even the slow buildups and everything, like, they are a bit cliche, but like, man, they are tense. I mean, they were the first encounter, totally not trying to do a pun there. But the first encounter with the alien, it had me on the edge of my seat when I was watching this. And there's even a moment later where there's one chase scene where she fights like a little monkey version of one, and like, just out of nowhere, it just stops attacking her and does this weird pose, and you're like, what the hell is that? And then it goes right back into it. You're just like, these aliens are actually alien, and that is something I think is missing a lot of times from alien movies, where it's just like the aliens just kind of act animal-ized. They don't act very alien. Like A Quiet Place, there's a reason for it. They're sound-based and everything. This, I really like that, like, no, these are like living things. They have like, they can move around and everything. They're aware of their surroundings, but they just do weird stuff. Their limbs contort in different ways to where, like, if they put their limb this way, all of a sudden they have like 6 different new joints, and you're just like, dude, the design on this thing is also really cool. It's simple, but it's cool. It brought me back to like just early sci-fi films when they would just be weird and experimental with just aliens like this. It's like, oh, we haven't had something like this in a while. I mean, like, yeah, Nope was beautiful and everything. I don't know if I would consider it weird, other than maybe like, yeah, maybe some of the allegory stuff, if you dig deep, can seem weird to people. But like the alien itself to me was like beautiful. Like it's a beautiful looking alien and everything. It's a weird thing to describe an alien, but like, especially one that like grinds up people and everything. But like this was just like, no, these things are just weird, creepy, and they feel actual alien.
I agree. Yeah, there's some wild design here with these aliens, and it's not one of those movies too. And that's what I was kind of wondering going into this. I'm like, is this going to be one of these like sci-fi movies that like they're not really going to give you a good look at the alien, or you're not really going to see exactly what they are? Are they going to remain abstract and kind of in the shadows? That's not the case with this movie. This movie does a really good job at like not just showing you the aliens, but also just like showing you, like, I guess you would say, the dexterity of them as well, just because of the fact
and the
that they're
variety.
so limber. And there's variety too. There's insane variety with these aliens as well. I guess now's a good time to take a break, kind of come back, parlay into closing thoughts on No One Will Save You, as well then dive into the WGA strike that has concluded after 148 days. So really good show to start. First half of Sleepless with Steve is in the can. We'll be back in about 60 to 90 seconds after this Zoom-sponsored intermission. Don't go anywhere. Sleepless with Steve. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, back after that Zoom-sponsored intermission on this Wednesday evening, talking about No One Will Save You, now available on Hulu. Caitlin Dever, I think, segueing just, again, kind of nearing to closing thoughts, but Caitlin Dever gives an outstanding performance in this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Working with almost no dialogue here, just sort of her wits and physicality. I think she does a fabulous job here. Caitlin Dever's been on, I think, a lot of people's radars, whether you knew her from Justified, whether you knew her from Last Man Standing, or Booksmart more recently, whatever the case may be. Caitlin Dever's been a fledgling star for a while, only 26 years old, and gives a very commendable performance here in this movie too, like really proving that, you know, she's young, but she can also carry a role on her own. And I think she does great work here. I think the emotions are great in this movie that she sort of displays. I think the only... And it's not like the movie mishandles it, I don't think. I think the only negative would be for me here is that I think the movie does a good job with the ending and sort of how it, kind of brings its title's relevance a little bit
Yeah.
into the fold. And then the way it chooses to kind of conclude is very nice and is very, you know what I mean? And almost inspiring in a weird way if you take it that way. But I mean, here's the thing though. This is, and this can't be ignored. This is another fucking movie though, ultimately about grief and trauma. And it has become the single most overused theme in movies. This will be looked at, I would say, in 10 years from now, unless we're still plagued by grief, trauma, and depression and everything else. I swear to God, like 2015 to 2025 or so, like this era in horror and sci-fi and thriller filmmaking is going to be defined by like griefer movies, if you will, movies that are about like grief, trauma, skeletons in closet, like that. I guess that's the only thing is that, right? I mean, it's so beyond familiar now. The craftsmanship here is great, but it does start to feel familiar territory. What say you, Dom? Then we'll go to Joe.
I don't
Doesn't
know.
have to be
Gee,
closing thoughts,
Steve,
just a response.
maybe grief wouldn't feel so goddamn relatable if the world didn't keep dumping it on us all the time. Maybe it speaks to us as an excellent source of a creative pool there, Steve. It feels very very familiar. No, I get what you're saying. I don't know. It's honestly, I don't know. I kind of disagree with that just because it's such a universal thing. It's such a base universal emotion that everyone will experience. The Brazilians call it saudade. Freaking Germans call it Tuesday. But it's just a difficult thing that we all go through at some point. So
Wait, is it actually called Tuesday?
I think it's generic emotion enough that that's what you're gonna say, Joe.
I said, is it actually called Tuesday, or were you making a joke?
I was making a joke.
Oh,
That-
okay,
no,
right.
but hand it to those Germans. They come up with some random ass word.
That's why I had to ask, because I was like, wait, hold on, let me make sure.
No. Yeah. Honestly, the alien part of it, the alien invasion part of it, is almost jokingly and knowingly generic. Like craft wise, how the story unfolds, how the plot unfolds is done, with the great ton of craft. But like these aliens, dude, they're what you think of when you hear aliens. The spacecraft are literal saucers,
Yeah,
dude.
they are, yeah.
It is very generic, and I think knowingly so. This isn't the first time this director has had kind of an unexplainable trauma. In fact, this is his second directing credit. His first one, I believe, was a movie called Spontaneous, which I think I remember seeing. I remember seeing it. I don't remember if I managed to see all of it, but effectively, the plot of that movie was kids just start literally combusting, exploding into a bloody mess, just out of nowhere. And I don't think it ever gets explained in that movie. But really, it's a none too subtle allegory for school shootings. But it's an entertaining movie, and it's done with in such an engaging way that they never explain why it's like that, almost to a comedic degree. But at the end of the movie, you don't really care, which is why when you do care, I start to think about, well, maybe this isn't your kind of movie, but that's okay, because we have David Zaslav to cater to. No, I'm kidding. I'm being very harsh. The point is, are we going to move to final thoughts, or do we want to?
You can give your final thoughts here.
Yeah, at the end of it, the craft here, which is where we're just pulling out over and over again. But honestly, it's very effective. The craft here is done very well. The sci-fi, the immediate real world plot, it's smartly done, almost generically, to the point where you don't really have to think too hard about it. It's not that original if you think about it. But what's at the heart of the movie is what this one character's struggle and what they have to do amidst this sci-fi drapings, and how effectively it's done, and the mystery of that make it a very, very fun movie too. to watch. And I honestly 3.5 out of 4 stars. Yeah, very strong second outing for the director Brian Duffield. That I honestly I'm liking their brand. I'm liking their style. So I can't wait to see what's next from them.
He's also had multiple spec scripts go to the blacklist, which is like the list of screenplays that are popular but unproduced. He's had multiple like different scripts, whether it be Underwater, which became the Kristen Stewart movie. He was a producer on Cocaine Bear as well. So he's Duffield's been around for a little bit now, and he's got himself a hit with this one. Joe, what say you for final thoughts? Then I'll kind of just backpedal and give mine.
I agree with you both. Because I did say like there is familiarity with this story and at times with the beats that it's doing, but how it was done just made it feel so refreshing. The trauma aspect of it is a bit of the familiarity as well. But again, it was just it was done in such a creative way where it's like, hey, it's done all through facial expression. I have to piece the story to myself. And even then, by the end of the movie, I might be left with a few more questions that I might have to think about and go back and watch this movie and kind of re-examine a few scenes. And I appreciated it for that. Like, I was like, hey, like, that's a unique way to make a movie. A unique and fun way, too. Because even if I wasn't viewing it like that, I still think, like, even just as an alien invasion movie, this was still pretty fun. For me, it's also 3.5 out of 4 stars. I really did have a good time with this. Is it going to be my top 10? Probably not, but it's definitely an honorable mention for me, like to people being like, hey, like, if there was one thing on streaming you should check out this year, this was probably one of the movies I would throw on there.
Hulu's been sneaky good with some of these too.
They have, yeah.
Palm Springs. What was that one we watched last year? Not Okay. Yeah. Not Okay was another one. There's been some sneaky good ones.
It recommended me right after I finished this one. It recommended me Fresh, which was another one I liked a lot last year or 2 years ago, whichever year it came out.
But No One Will Save You. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I think it's the perfect length for what it wants to do, too. I think it's a perfect length. I think that in a day and age of sort of oversaturation and everything being explained to you through monologue and dialogue and backstory, I love Duffield's approach of being very bare bones and inciting and encouraging you to kind of lean forward and be active and look for clues, like when she's writing out the letters and things like that. I love that. I find that to be fascinating. I think there's some great filmmaking tactics going on over here. And notwithstanding, too, Aaron Morton, great cinematography, very moody, good use of shadows in a lot of scenes. Gotta say it again, composer Joseph Trapanese, with that amazing last name, does really strong work when the aliens land and then the aliens do wind up encountering Bryn. Caitlin Dever's character, and Dever too gives an outstanding performance. This is one of the highlight reel performances of her still very young career. Solid 3 out of 4 stars from me. Thoroughly enjoyed this. It's also been a long time since we really covered a streaming movie on the show. We've been really focused on theater movies for the last several months, so it was kind of nice, even though I wish this damn thing would have come to theaters because I think it would have played very well in theaters. It was kind of cool to go back on streaming though, because I feel like streaming movies now, you don't see too many of them post-pandemic anymore, at least they don't have the platform that they once did when that was like the sole way to watch new movies.
It did have a limited release in New York and California where you could see it in theaters for the weekend that this came out, and then that was
they don't count. They don't count. We're in the Midwest. They don't count.
Yeah, they don't count.
They don't count. It was exclusively streaming. Okay, I'm in fucking Iowa.
Look,
those states do very little for me.
As someone who did go to the theater over the weekend to go see a new release, stay at home and watch No One Will Save You. If you did that, you made the right choice this weekend. If you went to go see Expendables 4, we'll save that to the end of the year.
A movie from No One Will Save You to all of these action heroes will save you. Yeah.
I watched Camp Hideout. I watched a very, very, very poor. This is another one we'll talk about at the end of the year on my list. A very, very poor, lightly faith-based movie set at a summer camp, and Corbin Bleu from High School Musical was the camp counselor. It was not a good time at the theater.
I gotta go see that one.
I will say that much.
Every time I see those trailers, like, this doesn't look like a real movie.
I call it the AMC Stubbs curse. Like the last 2 times I went to the movies, I've seen like the crappy Nick Cage movie, The Retirement Plan, and I've seen this Camp Hideout thing. The only reason that like I call this the AMC Stubbs curse is like I hate not going to a movie for a week. And so it's like if something's out that I like tangentially maybe think will either lead to a good review or a decent, or at least like a fun review, I'll go see it. Those two movies were definitely part of the AMC Stubbs curse, trying to get my money's worth. Either way, we got a big story on the plate right here that we'll devote the back half of the show to. The Writers Guild strike is over. Writers Guild strike is over after 148 days. Talks resumed at the end of last week, and we're officially behind this. And I think the writers had a really good reason to hold out, and I think they got a lot of their pressing demands answered in the nick of time before this thing either tied or surpassed the length of the longest Writers Guild Association or Writers Guild of America strike. So we're going to chat about this, though, because there are several points. There is some stuff I'd like to talk about, too, or at least mention. But I'm throwing it over to Dom because Dom is sort of our leading voice when it comes to pressing serious matters in the world of film. What you got for us, Dom? What's your assessment of this situation?
Success is that it is very much so. This has been one of the most effective strikes and visible strikes in America thus far. This is a hot strike summer, baby, and with it's honestly astounding how amidst all of this turmoil, the country apparently is turning back to that method. Not that it ever truly went away. Unions have been around. But they've been in hibernation on the macro, on the looking big picture at the country. They've been asleep since pretty much Reagan put them to sleep for a long while. And being Hollywood, being entertainment, the nexus of all that, this has been a pretty damn big one. And SAG-AFTRA is still ongoing. Keep that in mind, as I think Steve mentioned earlier. SAG-AFTRA is still going forth. So we'll see. We'll discuss a little bit after how they'll be affected now that this has been accepted. So first, the WGA guild leaders have to sit down with the AMPTP leaders, and then they'll work out a deal, and then the guild leaders have to turn back to their memberships, which is the thousands of people that are union members, and they'll go like, "Hey, so do you think this is a good idea? Vote yes or no," and then we'll say yes. We'll go with them with a yes if you vote yes. And they voted yes, I believe yesterday or today even. So this is the deal that's going to go through. And Joe, if you could put on screen this incredibly effective table.
I was about to say, this is actually laid out really nice.
Before we even get into the details,
nice
this is how you do politics. This is how you communicate ideas to people.
Dude,
this is how you make an argument. Yeah, Joe?
This is how they teach us to do our presentations in school, actually, is doing tables like this. Like, they're teaching us how to do it this way.
For good reason.
Don't do any star wipe, don't do any dumbass fancy transition animations. Just give me a clean ass table. For the love of God. But anyway, this is very cleanly done in a left to right fashion. Left column, it's what the WGA proposed. Middle column, it's what the studios gave back, and it's the right column is what is actually going to be put into effect. This is the actual the rightmost column is going to be what will basically put the writers to work and what will be behind their backs when they go back to work for years to come. This is a very important 7-page table here,
which is great if you want to see the comparisons and what the end deal was, to see like, okay, well, how much did they get screwed over on the deal? And like this is a biased table, of course. This was released by the WGA. It is biased because you can read some of the language there, and it is from their point of view. I'm sure an AMPTP table would look very, very different. We probably have all sorts of animations that would piss me off, but still, we are clearly biased towards the writers here, and because from our assessment, it is they're the ones that ain't getting the money. So in any case, we won't go over every single one, but there are 4 big things to highlight. Which are first and foremost the minimums, also known as Appendix A, and they're kind of 2 separate things here. But it's the base, it's the money, it's the basic bread of it all.
minimums. What you're getting paid, baby. That's effectively kind of what a salary is. It's a union point of view, so it's not wholly that. But basically, the union, they argued for a certain amount more, 6%, 5%, 5%, 655. AMPTP, what did they say? Oh, 432. And what was the actual deal? 454, 3.5. You don't have to calculate those numbers. Just know that there was a high number. Studios gave them a lower number. They met in the middle. There was a deal made.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a reason why that's first at the very top of the list, because that's a lot of nice money here. But below that, you have the big one of the big ones, which is streaming. So if you go to not episodic television, I believe it is.
I think it's at the top. Actually,
I'm sorry. It's back at they call it features.
Yeah,
and it deals with there's a fancy 6-letter term here called HBSVOD. It's dead center there. HBSVOD. That stands for. What does that stand for? That stands for high budget streaming video on demand. That's the fancy legalese term that they have to use. What we just know as streaming.
So a movie like Red Notice, a movie like Bird Box, a movie like that.
Yeah.
For us young folk, it's basically how all television is now. Is it actually what television is legally? No, because that's actually a separate part. That's more traditional broadcast television that's released on the networks. But effectively, for us youngins, it is that is how for anyone under the age of 40, this is basically what we mostly consume. So what is that? At least 20 minutes long, released on, of course, a streaming platform, etc. I'm not even going to get into that too much. Just know that it is now being recognized as something that, oh, hey, maybe we should have like residuals for. And if you look at some of the rejected offers in the middle column, the studios weren't even like, nah. Just no. That's the
required reading. Is I've been going down this list since you sent it. I've kind of just going down this list and reading the rejected or like the AMPTP offers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I almost just been zeroing in on that, and I would say a good third of these are just rejected our offer, refused to make a counter.
It's incredible. And of course, and again, to be somewhat fair, it could just be because this is a biased table. Keep that in mind. It could just be like the studios were still working it out, because AMPTP is not a monolith. It is all kinds of egos, all kinds of CEOs, all kinds of boards of directors. So it's very possible that they just couldn't get their own shit together in time, as opposed to being, mean about it. They were probably just being mean about it. But, there's keep that in mind. It is there's all kinds of decentralized aspect to it. But at the end of the day, they have to come together in a big fancy boardroom, which they did over the weekend. Couldn't have done it earlier during the week, so we have more time to digest this, but this is what hard, fast breaking news is. But effectively, streaming, it is now being recognized as an actual form of entertainment to be compensated for with residuals. Honestly, it's the same thing as the last writer's strike back in 2008, 9, I forget. But it's like, hey, DVD, maybe that's a real thing that we should compensate for, when DVD had been around since the 90s. But you know what? Better late than never. That's basically the whole thing with that streaming. Better late than ever. If you go to, I guess, halfway past slide 2 and towards slide 3, which is the writer's room. Here's where we get a little more wonky with some of it. How do we actually implement a writer's room? And what are some of the minimums going forward? Are we just shoving a person into a closet, calling that a writer's room, and then they just work on a day rate? Like, for real, the studios wanted to, I don't know if it's actually reflected here. That might have been more like some through the grapevine stuff, but there have been offers of like, hey, what if we just pay you per day? That way you could just give us a spec script for, work on that for a few days, and then we pass it off to another writer, and then we pass it off to another writer, and then you don't get credit at all, therefore no residuals, all the pork there that gets passed around there. No, now we get an actual writer's room. I guess we'll go to preserving the writer's room on page 3 with the pre-green light rooms there. If you see that, Joe, minimum staff of 6 writers, including 4 writer producers. Now you're probably thinking, aren't you just forcing the issue? Not necessarily. In fact, when you look at most TV shows and you look at written by, that's like the lead writer or even the creator.
Yeah.
A lot of TV shows, a lot of streaming TV shows, etc., there's a lot of like associate producers. There's a lot of writers that
Yeah.
don't make it onto the Wikipedia page. And I get why, because, it's a lot. It'd be a lot of names. The page would be down to like 7 pages down below and it would outrank all the articles to it. I get that. But know that there are real people underneath that name that you don't see and that need to get paid. And they weren't getting paid, or they were getting tossed around from here to there. So what does that mean? On the far right column, you see of that larger chunk there of preserving the writer's room. I don't want to read what's there, but if that leading thing there, if a development room of 3 or more writers is convened, minimum staff of 3 writer producers is required. Development rooms 20 weeks or longer. They're actually implementing week-long minimums for a lot of these projects, particularly for streaming. So I could get even wonkier with it, but the cause and effect there is that there is an outline now. There are hard numbers. That you can look into a room and be like, hey, there's 6 people here. Okay, we can call that a writer's room. Before, it'd be so loosey-goosey, which, again, I get it. If you're like in a college group project, or you're in like a thing at the office, if you're not a writer, where it's like, hey, let's just work with these folks here. I get that it's easier, to just do that because we're all salaried employees of this corporate entity, whatever. But in Hollywood, where it's a lot of freelance work, where it's a lot of, hey, it's nice to be a little more grounded for something that's as abstract as writing for Hollywood. Does that make sense? Gentlemen, I want to make sure that point has been put across, because
very well said.
It's hard for people to realize this who are not in the movie industry. Not that I am, but at least I can understand it. But it's hard to realize that when you live a life that is more so grounded, it's more structured. For writers, it's a lot less so. But they put out a lot of great content, a lot of creative stuff that millions, tens of millions, future generations, hundreds of millions people will consume, and they deserve proper compensation while they're still alive and kicking. So with all that being said, the last big one, there's a lot of health insurance stuff that's extremely important, but the big thing here, pensions, it's very easy to hand wave, but will affect these people for decades to come. It's the second to the last thing there, even towards the bottom, underneath pension and health.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. Now, there's been a lot of talk and debate on Twitter which I'm actually just getting to the hilarity of now, that Twitter has been a battleground for the writers amongst themselves, because it's all people who know how to write and construct like arguments because they're literal writers. But anyway, that's beside the point. Artificial intelligence. I just love this left to right. On the left side, regulate use of artificial intelligence on NBA cover project, et cetera, et cetera. We're very concerned about this, is what they're saying. Middle column, rejected our proposal, countered by offering annual meetings to discuss advancements and technology, which, granted, I think that's the WGA writing that for them, but I'm pretty sure at some point they floated, hey, let's discuss this. Let's discuss the advancements on technology on a yearly basis so we can touch base. Yeah, no, go F yourself. No, on the far right, we're going to have regulated use of artificial intelligence. AI-generated written material is not considered literary material. And that bottom part there, writer can elect. Oh, sorry, hold on. I think the point is, the studios can't just say, hey, the Zaslav 9000, we can credit that as a writer. That's the lead writer of for this film, which we joke now, but 10 years from now, dude, it's extremely possible.
Yeah.
They cannot do that. They cannot do that now, which is what the fear is. ChatGPT even gets a name drop on that very last page there. When performing writing, says companies cannot require it and they cannot use it unless the writer elects to do so, which is an interesting agreement too. A lot of writers, amateur writers, in my opinion, short-sighted thinking writers, will absolutely use things like ChatGPT in their spec script writing, in their forgetting all the fancy terms, but in their script writing, essentially, they will absolutely use it. They may even elect to do so, and it gives the studios. I'm pretty sure this was a deal that they made. It's like, hey, can you at least give us the chance? Can you at least give us the opportunity to exploit a writer? which is effectively what the little piece there is. And you know what? The WGA probably looked at that and they were like, you know what? Yeah, sure. We don't like it, but that's on us to educate writers to please, for God's sake, do not use this. At least don't tell the freaking studios about it. But this is a good first step. It is a precedent that we have not seen, to my knowledge, in any other industry. I'm giving a pregnant pause there because I said this at the beginning months ago that this writer strike is in American history, maybe even world history.
Yeah.
A legal precedent for to keep greater entities from taking advantage of artificial intelligence in writing or any kind of abstract idea. This, I'm pretty confident, this WGA agreement will be the basis for some Supreme Court ruling down the line. I'm not even joking.
It could also be looked at as the basis of just any future strike where AI, we don't know. I mean, again, like the way it's said here, discuss advancements in technology. We don't know where the hell that's going. We don't know what the hell the next field that this is going to involve. This strike is a good example of fighting back against the idea of that. I know it's one section in here, but I mean, like, this was like the big talk that everybody focused on, along with the residuals and, of course, health insurance that these writers deserved. But the whole talk of AI, this was like kind of like the battleground of it, because you're starting to see it with some other jobs. You go to McDonald's, you can either go to the cashier or you can go to the digital AI unit that's going to prepare your order for you. So it's like, this is like, a field that fought back against it.
Yeah, that second to last paragraph there, a part of the artificial intelligence there. Company must disclose to writer if any material given to writer has been generated by AI or incorporates AI generated material. Now, of course, the companies, the studios, they're going to do it. They're going to do it under the table, and they're not going to tell the writers in clear, blatant. We know this.
And it doesn't say they have to tell the consumers or credit or anything either. Now, that might be a separate...
Thank you, Steve.
That might be... I just walked into where you were going to go with that. It's not like this has to say... They really didn't say, like, that at the end of a movie or anything, it has to say, like, credit must be... it must be disclosed in the end credits of a movie that AI was used in collaboration with this film production. Credit doesn't have to be given there with AI.
Yeah.
And that was the big question we were talking about when this strike first started. I said, like, is it like a book, like citing a source from a book or citing a source from an external text, a peer-reviewed journal? Do you have to give credit to AI? Do you have to disclose that you used information or used like writing prompts or dialogue that you lifted from AI? You don't really know.
Yeah, 100%. This is... It seems so much that the world is reacting to disaster. It's strangely refreshing when we are technically reacting to things like ChatGPT and all that stuff. But it's really weird when we get preventative. And it's like, hey, we actually like anticipated this and we did something about it. And it's not perfect, but this is a truly a first step, and dare I say the first of its kind, and one that I hope is a very effective, incredible blueprint for that the emerging threat. Is a very loaded term, but I'm not even judging the software itself, but it's how we know these conglomerates, these entities, these companies are going to use it. We know how they're going to use it. They're going to use it with reckless abandon and short-sightedly. So when people say, hey, this clause right here, or this section of the strike agreement is it may have saved Hollywood, it may have saved creative writing as we know it, they're not being too hyperbolic, because it could potentially feed itself. The threat of AI could feed itself into a corner. It could eat itself into nothing, to the point where we don't even know how any of this works anymore. So kudos to WGA. Yeah.
Can I add something really quick?
Yes, absolutely.
I know we're butting up against the end of the show here. I wanted to say this, though, that was interesting now, is that Another thing that writers secured for this, obviously for streaming residuals, this is going to need to come into play. Studios provide the WGA details of a show's viewership, including total number of hours streamed worldwide. Foreign residuals are now based on the streaming service's number of foreign subscribers. Now, the first point is more applicable to what I'm going to say. This is an interesting kind of pivotal thing that if the AI component wasn't in here, I think this would be more talked about now. Now that studios have to provide writers with viewership numbers, that accessibility has not, given the accessible nature of the world that we have right now at our fingertips, streaming numbers and viewership things for streaming movies and shows has always been very, very, very vague and not released to the public.
It's a black hole. It's
random. And like Netflix likes to say like Bird Box is one of our most watched movies. Well, what does that even mean? And what counts as most watched? If somebody let it go for 2 minutes, press play and watch 2 minutes, does that count as a view? Yeah. Studios are going to have to be more transparent with that in order for these streaming residuals to even be possible. And I think that's another fascinating component of this AI thing, or of this agreement that they worked out, was the fact that they now have to disclose streaming numbers in order for these residuals to get paid to the writers.
That is an unintended. I'm actually shocked that the studios gave in at all on that, because that is, dude, the power of shareholders, because we've set up all these companies this way. The power of shareholders that they have over the psychological thing over the CEOs is astounding. So I am shocked that one actually got through. I was like, well, of course they're going to keep that one, in the dark, because they need that cover so that they can have more wiggle room. Now this is getting downright democratic, where it's like, oh, you know how like a president can look at the number of votes that they got in the last election? Now CEOs can like, oh shit, we actually have like hard numbers to see how well we are running this company based on the content that we're doing. I know it's not that direct, but something more concrete here. When since the dawn of Netflix, one of the first streaming services, it has been so dark. So Steve, thank you. That was a big one that I almost glossed over, but thank you. Yeah.
And there's more that we could spend the next half an hour kind of diving into and stuff. Just sort of
real quick. How do we think this is going to affect SAG-AFTRA? Positive, negative? I won't even say anything yet.
What say you, Joe? You want to go first?
I mean, I was gonna say I hope it's a positive effect, because if the studio gave this much a damn about the writers, I'm pretty sure they're gonna give a damn about the people that they use in front of the camera. Actually,
yeah.
So I was like, and I bet too, like, if you would compare, like, I think just glossing over this deal, it's a pretty decent deal. For the most part, they're getting what they wanted. It's not exactly everything, they didn't get like, but they met in the middle with a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the stuff
you aim high,
yeah.
You go forth high, and then you manage from there.
And like a lot of the stuff, I mean, this is probably the biggest thing. A lot of stuff that was rejected by the studio, they at least got something out of it. Which is big. It wasn't just like we couldn't get anything. We couldn't get them to budge. No, they stuck hard for the 160 plus days, and they ended up getting what they needed. 148 days. There it is at the bottom of the scroll. So yeah, I'm thinking with the Actors Guild, they'll probably even get a better deal, because it's like those are the people that like the producers really use, like, or at least use in front of the camera. That like they're gonna need them to have like a better deal and stuff.
They're used as bargaining chips.
Yeah, they're used as bargaining chips.
They finally have it. Yeah, it's like, oh hey, I can actually.
There's a YouTuber called Man Carrying Things, and he did like this like the strike in a nutshell video, and it was like the writers went on strike, and the producers like, yeah, all right, go ahead, we don't care, no one really cares about you. And then when it was like the actors go on strike, they're like, oh crap, you're the people actually, you're the ones that people actually care about.
People, yes.
Go on.
People say that the actors strike seemingly came out of nowhere, like a WWE entrance. Nah, dude. Dude. They talk to each other. The writers and the actors, they talk to each other. They were planning this.
They were already on the picket lines with the writers. A lot of actors were already, because they knew this was coming.
We're just showing solidarity.
Yeah.
You know what you're fucking. And hey, that's how you do politics, baby.
That is, yeah.
That's how it's made. That's how it's done. That's how you get shit done.
I'm telling you, even though
that's just smart politics.
Even though we see this deal done with the WGA, don't be surprised if next week you still see some writers out on the picket lines with SAG-AFTRA.
You know, it'd be heaven. IATSE and Teamsters, just like, hey, I'm gonna park my truck right here for about 100 days. No, that's not gonna happen. But still, oh man.
Yeah. Great show, guys. Dom, outstanding job breaking all of that down and leading us in that discussion of that, too. That was some truly great stuff. I even learned some stuff even after having looked over it myself. I learned some stuff, but Joe, you could say the same, too. That was a lot of fun, very enjoyable stuff to go over with you two gentlemen. That's going to do it for the show tonight. Next week, looking forward to it. We got the creator. Dom and I will be here talking about it. TBD on Joe. We hope you're here, man, but we understand the plight of a man going through his master's program over here as well. We understand the struggle bus that you are on right now with all of that. But at any rate, next week's The Creator. Really looking forward to discussing this movie. Kind of reminds me of a Neil Blomkamp movie, and we just talked about one of those a couple of weeks ago. So we are going to be talking about The Creator next week. Any updates on the writer's strike, maybe we'll touch on, or who knows, maybe SAG-AFTRA will come up with they'll come up with a solution or something, or a resolve for their strike. We shall see. Either way, we will talk about it here on Sleepless with Steve. Been a great show. We're back together next week. Same time, same place, 6:30 Central Time. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.